that is a good lesson for all of us this morning. When God gives you something to do, it is best to just get on and do it, even if it's hard, even if you don't want to do it, even if it doesn't go according to plan. If it is God's plan, it is your responsibility, and he is going to work it out. And if there's a mess, it is God's mess to deal with. It is your job to be faithful when God gives you something to do. That's our first little thought this morning. So Samuel arrives with Jesse, and Samuel looks at each son in turn. So he looks at the first son. He looks at Eliab, the tall and handsome first son. Surely that must be God's choice. But no, God tells Samuel that no, tall, handsome Eliab is not God's choice. Neither are his brothers Abinadab or Shammah or any of them. In fact, God's choice is so unlikely that Jesse hasn't even brought him in from looking after the sheep. But the young shepherd David is God's choice. And actually, even after this, he doesn't become king for many, many years after he's anointed. And it's not even clear from the passage whether he and his brothers understood what was going on when Samuel anointed him. But even though he was God's chosen king, David wasn't perfect. He really, really, really wasn't perfect. He stole another man's wife, and then he murdered him. Now, whatever you think of our new king, he hasn't quite done those things. God doesn't choose perfect people to do his work. He chooses ordinary people like you and me to do his work. And you and I mess up. And God is there, and he helps us to figure it out. In yesterday's coronation service, we heard about the only perfect person, Jesus. Our Prime Minister read about Jesus. He read these words from a slightly different translation. He is the image of the invisible God, the firstborn over all creation. For by him all things were created, things in heaven and on earth, visible and invisible, whether thrones or powers or rulers or authorities, all things were created by him and for him. I don't know about you, I found those amazing words coming out of the mouth of our Prime Minister yesterday. Absolutely remarkable. Jesus, the firstborn of creation. Everything created by him. If Jesus is in charge of your life, friends, you do not need to worry about the things God is giving you to do. And the great news for me, the great news for you, is that God doesn't only choose people to be kings or leaders or indeed vicars. We are not especially special. God chooses people to be at school. God chooses people to be doctors. God chooses people to be bin men. God chooses people to work in shops or to look after children or grandchildren or to work for banks or councils or tech startups. In short, I could go around everybody here and ask you what you're doing. And God has chosen to put you where he's put you and to do what you are doing. God doesn't send perfect people to do these things. Last couple of weeks, more stories about church leader who's messed up. Church leaders are not perfect people. God sends you and me. And we are going to think about that a little bit more now.